it is chaos right now in the U.S. with all of this talk about Kamala versus Joe Biden. Your honest opinion, do you think they'll swap candidates between now and the election? If so, how will they go about it? If not, how can Biden win?
James, it's great to see you. By the way, happy 4th. That's an hour's worth of answers to that. Here's where I'm coming from. I think they're going to replace him. Okay, I think they desperately want to replace him, but he needs to want to be replaced. Keep in mind, we're already through the primaries. Joe Biden has delegates pledged to him. These are his most faithful people who are going to vote for him at the Democrat National Convention in Chicago unless he tells them not to. Now, that's not to be saying that the Democrat National Committee can't do something after Chicago, but it's really, really difficult. So are they going to get rid of Biden? Biden holds the keys to that answer. If you want to sort of watch what's happening in the background, as with so many other things in life, James, follow the money. If the Democrat donors start turning off the spigot of funds, the Biden campaign, that could prompt the president to decide that discretion is the better part of valor and to pull out of the race. In just the last hour, as you and I sit here and talk, one of the largest Democrat donors, one of the Disney family heiresses, announced that she would give no more money to Democrats as long as Joe Biden was on the ticket. So you're already starting to see that fall into place.
So that's really interesting. She's saying no more money to Democrats at all, because I had been hearing that some of the plan had been to just simply shift money to downstream candidates and try and save the House and the Senate. Is that a viable option for the Democrats at this point, or is it just, we're really at pull the pin time?
Well, it's fascinating to watch. You believe what people do a lot more than what they say. And in the last 24 hours, I think I've done 4 or 5 interviews here on television in the United States of America with Democrats either in Congress now, who have now come out against Joe Biden, or, and this is just as interesting, Democrats who are running for office in the House and the Senate in these competitive districts and competitive states who've also come out and called on Joe Biden to step down. What does that mean? That means that the candidates who are in these really tight districts have done their math, they've done their research, and they think that Joe Biden hurts them. So it's fascinating to see that dynamic as well. So again, you asked a bunch of questions with a bunch of great, fascinating answers. It's going to take a long time. Watch the donors, watch the other candidates. It is a fascinating time right now in American politics.
So then do they go to, is the potential then, if he steps down before the convention, is it an open convention, or is Kamala the anointed candidate? Because, of course, you want to talk about money. All of that money from the Biden campaign can go to her because she's the running mate, whereas who knows where it goes if they pick somebody else?
It all depends. If Joe Biden comes out and says, I think Gavin Newsom is my guy, then you got to wonder if his delegates vote for Gavin Newsom. At the same time, very many high-ranking Democrats in Washington, D.C. have already lined up behind Kamala Harris. Names that you won't be familiar to your viewers in Australia. Jim Clyburn, you probably know that name, longtime leader of the Congressional Black Caucus, probably the second biggest name in African-American politics in this country after Barack Obama, has made it very clear that if Joe Biden is not at the top of the ticket, Kamala Harris will be his candidate. So you're already seeing those sorts of dynamics as well. Again, there's so many different moving pieces, and there's news every half an hour. There's going to be a huge interview with one of the leading Democrat news networks here by the end of the day tomorrow with President Biden. Just so much going on.
It's wild. Now, on the other side of the equation, of course, Donald Trump. And one thing that a number of people have been saying to me is, hey, look how quiet he has been staying during all of this. He's kind of letting Biden and the Democrats self-immolate here. Is this a deliberate strategy, and does this play out of advice that I know he was given before the debate, which was just to step back and let Biden fall over of his own weight?
Two different answers to that, both pointing in sort of the same direction. It's axiomatic in politics, not just in this country, but all around the world, that when your opponent is digging a hole, you don't take away his or her shovel. And Donald Trump did that to Joe Biden back in the first debate in 2020. Joe Biden was really struggling in that debate, struggling to give straight answers, and Donald Trump kept interrupting him. And generally accepted that he lost the debate because of that. I think he learned the lesson. And you could see a part of the debate from last Thursday night when he sort of looked over at Joe Biden. And I know the president well, President Trump. I could see it in his face. He knew that Joe Biden wasn't up to the task that night, and you saw Donald Trump really start to dial it back after that. So it looks like he has learned that lesson from 2020 and is getting out of Biden's way as Biden sets himself on fire. But there's another answer to the question, James, and that is this. You're talking to Republicans who are already starting to say to themselves, you know what? Maybe we shouldn't push too hard to get rid of Joe Biden because we're pretty sure we can beat him, and we're not sure if we can beat the next person in line. They think they can beat Kamala Harris. Most people do, but they're not sure how they match up against the governor of California, the governor of Michigan, the governor of Maryland. So there's a lot of question marks there. So there may be a couple of different reasons you've seen Donald Trump spend a little bit more time on the golf course the last couple of days.
Indeed. Now, I want to ask you this question. I want to draw on your experience, Mick, in the White House as a chief of staff. How do you rate how the White House, the Biden White House, is managing this? I mean, we've seen these train wreck press conferences. Let me just play a little bit of Karine Jean-Pierre making absurd excuses for Joe Biden. Have a look at this.
Hold on a second. There's a cold. There's a jet lag. You combine that. He continues to work on for the American people day in and day out, around the clock. Things happen. He is as sharp as ever, as I have known him to be in my engagement and my experience with him.
I've seen more convincing North Korean news readers talk about the dear leader's golf score than I have this. I mean, the White House seems to be very confused in its messaging, and they're not doing much to actually do anything to let Joe Biden take the wheel of this and show that he is fine by letting him have an extended press conference or anything like that. This should be telling, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm one of the few people you probably know who has actually spent time with the North Korean communications team, and you're absolutely right. This is an absolute disaster from this White House. The debate was bad, James. It really was. I think what's frightening just as many large Democrat donors, big names in the Democrat world, is the way the White House has handled the matter since the debate ended. It has been mixed messaging, one after the other. You heard Karine Jean-Pierre say that, well, he had a cold. It was world travel. That's not an answer. And one of the things that's different nowadays is that it used to be that she would get these questions from the right-leaning press, to the extent that exists in this country, and she'd give those types of canned answers, and nobody would care. The questions now are coming from the left-leaning press, and they're really starting to push back hard on this White House. There's a war right now between the New York Times, the Washington Post, CNN, MSNBC, and this White House over how they have handled this. So you asked the question at the top of this section, which is, how is the White House handling it? Really, really, really poorly. In fact, they have made things worse since the end of the debate, not better.
And I'll tell you what, Mick, from the start of when I started airing this show, I said that this White House press corps was in an abusive relationship with this White House, and now they are jilted and they're furious, and that's what we're seeing right now. Mick Mulvaney, thank you so much for your time this evening.